Welcome to Toffee TV. Frank Lampard is the new Everton manager. It's been announced at last. The worst kept secret in football for the last few days, but he is the Everton manager. He's very happy to be here. He said so.
He did.
So, I mean, what are your initial thoughts?
I think it's a good appointment. You know, as we've said before, given the names that were on the list, I think he's probably the best out of that bunch. He's still a massive risk. Obviously, he's not had no experience being in this situation. Done well at Chelsea, certainly in that first season. I was going to say with limited resources, but given the quality of their squad, you know, that would be difficult to say. But he had no transfer budget, and he had to bring through some of the young players, and he did that really well. And I think that's a massive positive coming to Everton, is his ability to bring in the young players and give them a chance. We've just seen Lewis Dobbin sign a new contract. Anthony Gordon's been fantastic this season. I understand those Evertonians that aren't fully sold on it and don't fully believe that he's the right man. But, you know, as we've said, if we were sitting at a table and it was Diego Simeone and Pep Guardiola and we'll go with Frank Lampard, then you could say that, you know, that doesn't make sense. But the managers that were on the list, you know, Vitor Pereira, we obviously wanted Martinez, Mourinho was in there. You know, I know people will say, oh, Kovac or Garcia, but were they ever really on the list, or were they just names thrown in there? I think Lampard is the best of that bunch and the least risk. You know, obviously a lot of Evertonians have been really sort of steering the Lampard ship over the last few days or so, especially when it became apparent that it was between him and Vitor, and Dunk was put in the hat as well. So that'll automatically create a much more positive feeling around the club than what it would have had Pereira had come in. You know, again, he's a young manager. He'll have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, I think, to want to prove people wrong. He lost the Chelsea job, some would say unfairly. We know how Chelsea work. If you lose, you know, a possession in the second half, you get sacked. That's just how it is. But I remember a lot of Chelsea fans at the time who weren't very happy about it and who said it was the wrong decision. So Lampard has obviously been out of management since then, so he'll want to come in and prove that, you know, he can still be of a good manager in the Premier League, but this is a very, very different situation than what he was in Chelsea.
Do you think, obviously Everton have, you know, under Farhad Moshiri, we'll have a look in a minute at managers under Farhad Moshiri, but under Moshiri, he's tried different routes, hasn't he? Yeah. You know, we've tried, Ronald Koeman was his first managerial appointment, 53 years of age, Southampton, doing all right. It didn't work out. He never got the impression he really wanted to be at Everton. Yeah. And Everton had that impression and should have bombed it before it started, really. But, you know, and then obviously Allardyce come in, he was 60 odd, and then he tried to go with a young coach with Marco Silva, didn't quite work, and then it was back to the experience of Carlo Ancelotti, 62, whatever he was, and then Rafa Benitez in his 60s. Does it give you any kind of excitement, if that's the right word, that it's a young coach again? I think energetic, you know, like you've just said, a point to prove, fresh ideas. Does that give you any kind of like hope that the football club are moving into a more progressive era? Yeah,
it does. I think certainly with the last manager, Rafa Benitez, a lot of criticism that Benitez come under was because a lot of the football he was trying to play or the things he was trying to implement were 10, 15 years old and just wouldn't work in this modern day. And Ancelotti come under a little bit of stick, you know, with that as well. Lampard obviously not only is a young manager, but has not long stopped playing the game. So again, has been through that progression of how you would make a team successful in the early, you know, 2000s versus how it needs to be successful, you know, and how it's grown, you know, the later that football has gone. So, you know, it does give me a bit of confidence that he'll know that he's worked, as I said, at two football clubs in this sort of era of football. He likes playing like a 4-3-3, attacking football. You know, you look at the likes of Reece James at Chelsea, give him his big opportunity and, you know, moulded him into the player that he is today. Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, you know, for Kyle Tomori, of course, as well. So it does give me confidence, because I don't think we'll be sitting here having that conversation of, you know, this worked for this manager 15 years ago, but it's not going to work now. I think we'll be very much looking at a forward-thinking manager who knows the here and now of football. And, you know, from what I've seen and what I've read, he plays very positive football. He wants to move forward. He seems, you know, happy to be here. And I think one of the most important things as well is he hasn't really got time to settle in, Lampard. This isn't like it was in the summer, or it will be in the summer, where it's, I'll give the players 2 or 3 weeks to see who's good enough and who fits. That we've seen already heavily linked with Donny van der Beek, according to reports. That one's a done deal. Other players being heavily linked with. So before Lampard was even officially announced as Everton manager, there's players in the pipeline to bring in that I can only assume have come from him. And it's the same with the current playing squad. He won't have time to think, right, what can I do here? Who fits right? It's got to be straight ahead, work from the off.
Does it worry you that, obviously, when he was at Derby and when he was at Chelsea, they conceded a lot of goals, both teams, because of his expansive way of playing. Everton had an issue all season, conceding goals.
Yeah.
And one of my, and this isn't because I've got faith that he'll get us playing a different way, and he's got to address that. And obviously, he's still got Duncan Ferguson and Alan Kelly there, who will know about this squad of players. So, and obviously his staff, Paul Clements and people like that have come in. So I'm not saying he's not going to be able to solve it, but one of the first things he has to solve is how porous Everton are, because if the way he wants to play is open, and we're already letting goals in when we try to be not open, that is an issue. Yeah. And yet I do feel like this Everton side still is miles better than what it's showing.
Yeah.
And so maybe the freshness of ideas, maybe the players have been coasting because they didn't actually like the last fella, in terms of we don't actually, it's not, I don't always believe like it's I don't like you, so I'm not trying.
Yeah.
But it's whether they fully believe in what's being said. Do you know what I mean? So when you cross that white line, no Everton player, and Alex Iwobi is included in this, crosses that white line to play crap.
No.
Nobody.
I agree.
The professional footballers, and they want the adulation. They want to come off and everyone's like, my God, you were amazing today. And social media, he's amazing, Everton. But for whatever reason, and it isn't all down to talent, for whatever reason it's not working, and we are letting goals in. And it is that thing of something keeps happening and you're looking at that fella on the line to go, well, if you didn't get us doing this, we'd be able to solve that. Yeah. And so do you think that since he's come out the game, and then criticism were laid at him is that they're too open, they're too expansive, they're too porous, do you think he'll have been looking at ways to negate that? And is that the biggest thing that he has to get right immediately, stop Everton conceding goals? Yeah,
well, I hope so. And I hope that was a question put to him in the interview process by, the owner and whoever else was interviewing him, is, look, again, as you mentioned, his record of conceding goals wasn't particularly great at either of his last 2 clubs, and that's something that, you're right, Everton really need to focus on, and I do think it is number 1 priority, because scoring goals hasn't really been our issue. Okay, we didn't score against Villa, and we had chances, but you've got Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Anthony Gordon, Townsend, Gray, they'll score goals. You've got El Ghazi in there, who now is coming in. It is the stopping conceding goals, and okay, you've got Mina coming back, and that will improve things. But set pieces is another thing you'll need to focus on straight away, because if we concede a set piece nowadays, you can pretty much guarantee it's a goal.
We've conceded the most. We've conceded 8. Yeah, which is the most.
Which is shocking. So I hope he'll have learned his lessons, and I'm sure he will have, because he'll have been sacked by Chelsea and will probably have thought, right, I need to. What went wrong? How could I have avoided that? And conceding the goals that he conceded was one of the big things. And getting his head down. And as I said, that should have been one of the number 1 questions he was asked, is how have you changed from, this time? Because we really need the changed Frank Lampard, and not the Frank Lampard that was conceding so many at Chelsea. Yeah. And again, he'll have to sort that out, and he'll have to put that in play, because we can't keep conceding the goals we're conceding. We can't keep going into games thinking, if we score 2, we'll concede 3, or, we've got to, we need to start keeping clean sheets. We need to start getting points on the board, and that's something that he's going to have to focus on. And I think he will. I think he will focus on. I think, like I said, having Mina back will be a massive positive. Fullbacks will be interesting, because he likes fullbacks to go forward, doesn't he, and break. So it'll be interesting to see how that works coming back at us defensively. But
that's where your midfield have to drop in, though. Yeah,
maybe that's where Van der Beek comes into it.
Well, we saw it. We saw this probably best executed under either David Moyes or even Roberto Martinez, in terms of when the fullbacks flew on. Gareth Barry and James McCarthy sat in and dropped in, but we still had enough players at the other end of the pitch, and I guess that's what where Everton weren't doing it under Rafa Benitez. You know, Luca Dean basically left because Benitez wouldn't let him cross the halfway line. That was where the problem started. And that's a whole different conversation, and the rights and the wrongs, and probably from a managerial point of view, he was probably right to get Dean out because he was questioning. But from a football point of view and from a player's point of view, let me go and do what I'm good at.
Yeah,
you know, but I think what Lampard likes to do, you're absolutely right, is have his fullbacks creating an overload and getting on the outside. And in Nathan Patterson, we saw him play for the 23s last week, create the goal.
Yeah.
Likes to be on the front foot. That's what we like to excuse me, that's what we like to see.
Absolutely.
Mikhalenko, we saw that in Kiev. He likes to get up, see with the Ukraine. He likes to be, get forward and get balls into the box. So we need that. And I think that was, I guess, in Everton's last game, Duncan Ferguson tried to make us more solid with Ben Godfrey and John Joe Kenny. I think where it went wrong for Duncan on a day was, it's fine being solid, and if you're playing in a 4-4-2, which is fine, you know, a lot of Evertonians want Diego Simeone, that's all he plays, 4-4-2, so you can be successful with it, but what you have to do is your fullbacks have to create your width. And we've got Ben Godfrey, every time he steams down the line, he has to come back onto his right foot, so that it's gone. And John Joe Kenny didn't cross the halfway line, so the width was gone. So what Lampard, I think, will want to do is get his two fullbacks on the outside. So it's imperative that the two lads playing in the middle of the park sit with the centre backs and make sure we're not sprung very quickly, because we just numerically we still should have 6 attackers. Even with the 4-back, and at times you can have 7 because one sits with the 2. You know, if you look at, I think he does it really well for Aston Villa, actually, Douglas Luiz. That when they bomb on, he just sits in with the 2 centre-backs. And so the Villa will have 7, and we've seen great examples of it with Manchester City, with Fernandinho, and Rodri does it now, where everyone's committed, even Liverpool, at times with Van Dijk and whoever it is, Mathew or whatever, they'll always have Fabinho sat in between the 2, so they've got 3 covering. And I think Everton have got to get back to that. Maybe what Lampard will do is, because he likes possession-based football as well, we may have more of the ball and be able to move it a little bit better, and that might bring more of this squad out, because no matter what anybody says, us as fans, we can be critical and go, he's crap, whatever. These players are miles better than what they're showing. They're miles better.
Absolutely.
And you hear other managers or other coaches or other people who aren't in the game going, that squad they've got, they should be nowhere near that position. And maybe Lampard can come in and go, we want to play this way and we want to play that way, and that'll get the best out of what we've got. Let's have a look at, Farhad Moshiri's, he's just appointed as 6th permanent manager in the 6 years that he's been here. Everton had 3 managers in 18 years prior to Moshiri. So here we go. But let's have a look at the managers who he's had, and their kind of win rates before they came through the door at Goodison. Ronald Koeman had a 51% win rate. Sam Allardyce had a 37% win rate. Marco Silva, 50% win rate. Carlo Ancelotti, 57% win rate. I actually thought that'd be higher. Rafa Benitez had a 45% win rate, and Frank Lampard is currently at a 50% win rate. So Lampard's kind of Koeman, Silva, they part the course really. Carlo was obviously above that, but better win rate than Allardyce and Benitez, which I guess what people would say is, they're more about risk. They don't take risks, so their win rate will be lower. They probably don't lose as many of those cheap games or whatever. So we're getting a manager that likes to be on the front foot. Do you think the fans will respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of this appointment and maybe decision was the reaction that the fans were going to have. We've said before, me and Ped said last week, that this is the time now where we as fans need to get behind the manager and the team, because regardless of who's in the dugout or who's on the pitch, these players will come and go, the managers will come and go, the owners will come and go. We are the one constant. And if we're waiting for a reaction from the players, if we still have this very much, we'll create an atmosphere when you show us why we should create an atmosphere, then we're just going to keep in this constant, again, duel one versus each other, and it's never going to work. We need to get to Goodison every one of the remaining however many games of the season and make it an absolute bear pit for the opposition, and the players will react to that.
Isn't this an issue we've had for a while?
It is, yeah, it
what
absolutely
the originals
is.
were trying to do and
it
things
is, yeah.
like that.
No, you're spot on. It's been going on for a long time, and I think, again, this season specifically speaking, there's been a lot of anxiety and nervousness around the fan base and around the club. So naturally, when you get to Goodison, you naturally don't, although you're naturally not thinking, right, let's make an absolute noise. You're thinking, what's going to happen today? Are we going to concede from this set piece? Or are we going to win? There's a lot of sort of worry and, as I said, nervousness around it. Whereas we need to put that to one side now and make Goodison an absolute bear pit every time we're there. And I think the Lampard appointment will help create that, because there's already more optimism than there would have been with other managers that were linked with us.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at Frank Lampard's stats then, some of his managerial stats. Up now. So 141 matches, he's had 70 wins, 30 draws, 41 losses. He's currently averaging 1.7 points a game. He's obviously two and a half years as a manager, really, isn't it? Full season at Chelsea, full season at Derby, and obviously the half season. So, you know, at 1.7, he's at Derby County, but he didn't, didn't have a lot of money. Had to work with loans, got the squad into the playoffs, lost in the final to Villa. You know, was unlucky there. I remember watching them against Leeds, actually, but I watched both playoff games that season against Leeds. And Leeds were better than them at Pride Park, but when they went to Ellen Road, they battered them. Yeah. Derby, they were brilliant that night. They were absolutely brilliant and beat Leeds. You know, we know that. We've seen how offensive he was at Chelsea as well. At times did really well. You know, got some great wins in the Champions League and things like that. In fact, for one of the last games before lockdown, they belted us 4-0, didn't they, at Stamford Bridge, and destroyed us. And,
what a day.
Grim day, yeah. That came a couple of months after we beat them 3-1 at Goodison. So, you know, we've seen the highs and lows that he could produce, but people will say, well, hang on, the level he had at Chelsea is miles better than what he had at Everton. We know that, but I think me and Ped were talking on one of the lives, and Ped was saying, well, yeah, but the expectancy at Chelsea,
it's much higher than
always stuff that you've got to be hitting. I think you said it before, you know, you lose the possession, it almost feels like you're about to lose your job. Well, he won't have that at Everton. No,
he won't. There's a different level of expectancy, and there's a different level of pressure with the situation Everton are in now. In the summer, if he'd been coming in the summer, it obviously wouldn't have been as much of a pressured situation. His goal now is ultimately to keep Everton in the Premier League and win the games that he needs to win in order to do that, and that's a different pressure to winning the league, which is at Chelsea. But if he was at any other of the top clubs, he probably wouldn't have been sacked at the time that he was sacked at Chelsea, because we know, you know, there's rumours at the moment that they're looking to sack Thomas Tuchel. He won the Champions League last year, which is absolutely bonkers, but that's how they run their business, and Frank Lampard knows that more than anybody because he was at that club for so long. So you're right, it's a different level of expectancy, and, you know, Everton aren't looking at winning the league, and he finished in the Champions League with you know, in that season where he couldn't spend any money, and if he was to get anywhere near European football with Everton, then it'd be an absolute miracle. As I said, it's a different level of pressure. But we're talking about a player who won 11 major trophies, a manager who won 11 major trophies as a player, and, you know, has got that winning mentality and that knowing what it means in those difficult times to win.
950 odd games.
There you go, as a player.
Just under 300 goals. You know,
so he's
incredible.
been there, and albeit he hasn't really, maybe when he was at West Ham in his early days, hasn't really been in this sort of situation. He'll know what it takes to go out there and win games of football.
Well, let's have a look at his Premier League manager stats. Let's have a look at them, because obviously that's what we're operating in for now. And we hope it carries on. He's had 57 games as a Premier League manager. He won 28 of them, drew 11 and lost 18, averaging 1.67 points per game, which comfortably keeps you in the Premier League if you get 1.6. You know, I think if Everton end up with 1.67 points a game from his 18 games, we'll comfortably be safe. Again, the caveat being he did have some good players at Chelsea. So, I mean, listen, he's in. I think you hit the nail on the head before. A lot of Evertonians wanted him. We're banging the drum. There's no reason now not to get behind him.
You know,
exactly. We've almost got the perfect opportunity for the first game at the weekend. There's no pressure.
No.
There's always pressure. But what I mean
There's
is,
less pressure than the
it's
following
not
two.
a Premier League game, is it? So it's an FA Cup tie against Brentford. It's at Goodison, a home game. You know, we've got players there, Patterson, Michalenko, who can come in, get them involved.
Absolutely.
Who knows, you know, at the time of recording, there's still quite a few hours left on deadline day. Everton may still add another couple. We know Donny van der Beek's in the door. There might be another couple, who knows. But we've got to get moving forward now and with this fella, and I'm behind him, fully behind him. You know, young manager. I'm glad, like I've said before, I'm glad Duncan has stayed. He's brought some good members of staff in with him. Paul Clement, you know, we know he's got a good rep. Joe Edwards is the assistant manager, which, you know, he was that's amazing, interesting one. I think that he is the assistant manager when Paul Clement's there. He's obviously more experienced and being Carlo's assistant. That Joe Edwards, who was very successful at Chelsea with the youth side and bringing players through. I think that's really important. So things are in place now. I would absolutely love it, because on paper, and we don't play on paper, we know that. On paper, if you look at it, if this went the way it could go, positively, it could be the ideal appointment for Everton. He's 43 years of age. We're moving into a new stadium in just over 2 years. If he could get a team playing nice football and doing well, top half finishes and all that progression, we could really grow together. I'm not jumping ahead of myself. I'm really not, honestly. I'm just saying,
there's definitely
rather than think of the way we felt in the summer. When Rafa Benitez was appointed, there was already a big black cloud over it because of the Liverpool stuff. More so for me, the way he played footy. That was the biggest one for me, of like, I haven't seen Newcastle. But there was never a situation where people were going to buy into it.
No.
We were never going to be, you were never seeing something where you're with my manager. You know, that classic like meme that you see everywhere, you know, there's my manager and all that stuff. No one was ever doing that. No one was ever singing Rafa Benitez's Blue and White Army, where it just wasn't happening. Yeah, you can imagine the street end or the away fans singing Frankie Lampard's Blue and White Army, can't you? Can, just the way it is. You can imagine people buying into it. We were never releasing a Rafa Benitez t-shirt ever, but I imagine Ped is already drawing up quite a few ideas for some merchandise.
Frankie goes to Hale.
Exactly, all of it. Frankie goes to Hale, but that's a classic. It's a classic. As for people who don't know, Finch Farm is in Hale. So there's all of that stuff that is very little, but it also becomes a big thing, because it's you want to sing about your manager, you want to sing about the team, you want to look at that manager and go, I'm right behind him. You know, you want it all to feel like you're all on the same page. And we had that with Carlo, but COVID coming, who knows how great that could have gone without COVID, if we were all in stadiums up and down. But you know, we missed it. Only Everton could miss a freaking year of not seeing James Rodriguez in an Everton kit.
Did we ever actually see him?
Never.
Other than in Florida.
People seen him in
Florida.
People seen him at Old Trafford in that 4-0 in the friendly.
The friendly.
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Never happened. I mean, Ped was supposed to see it and ended up going, I'm getting bladdered and didn't go because he's ill. But there you go. But all of that stuff. So we need something to believe in. We need something to hang on to. And like we said before, didn't we? We tried many other things.
He's also a manager that I think the players will look at and think he's won everything, he's been everywhere. You know, again, the Pereira stuff, I think it'd be very easy for this squad to go, you've not done anything of note. I don't think you've done anything not as a player and as a manager in the top leagues of Europe. You've not either, whereas none of them Everton players looking at Frank Lampard thinking...
Just before we Frank Lampard did, of course, break our hearts, and
he did in the 2009
final as well.
Yeah, he did.
So he owes us a trophy.
Good times.
Great times, finishing fifth and getting to cup finals. Just before we finish, do you think that matters? He's just out the game. I think he retired 5 years ago. Played in MLS, and he was very good in MLS, actually. But do you think, as a player, you look at Frank Lampard and go, this fella was one of the Premier League greatest players, like goal scorers and everything. Do you think that matters to these players now?
It should do. And if they don't look at him and think that, then there's a problem with with their attitude and ultimately what they want. If these players want to be successful and want to be at the top of their game in the Premier League, which is the league that they're in at the moment, then who better to look at than somebody that's won it so many times and been a Champions League winner and a multi-time FA Cup winner and go, well, he's going to know how to do it, isn't he? He's one of the Premier League's greats.
And played for Manchester City for a year as well. Yeah.
Chelsea for most of his career. Unbelievable midfielder. So if that's what these players want, which it should be, and if it's not, then that's an issue in itself. Off you go. And if that's what they want, then and they don't look at Lampard and think, I'm going to take every word that comes out of his mouth as I need to listen to, then again, there's another problem with them, because who better to be told by than
we are finishing
a serial winner?
We are finishing now, but I've watched quite a few interviews with him over the last few days. And having COVID helps you, gives you that time to do it, doesn't it? One of the thing that came out over and over again from him and from people talking about him was how much of a hard worker he is. Yeah. You know, Rio Ferdinand saying when they were at West Ham as a kid, training had finished and he'd go and do another hour on his own. Yeah. And Ferdinand was like, I need to be doing that. And players started jumping on, just constantly doing it, going to get better and better and better. Absolutely. Listening to him do interviews, talks very much about hard work, being focused. That's one of his non-negotiables, as they call it.
And that's what we need.
Is hard work. And if they don't want to come along, one of the things he said early on to Chelsea and to Derby was, this is what we expect. Yeah. If you don't want to come along with that, fine, let us know and off you pop. But if you're going to be with the group, you always have to do, these are the things. We'll see if it works, but that is what you want to hear, don't you? Absolutely. And maybe because he's a bit younger and he's got, I don't know, maybe the players like that. I don't know. We're looking for any little grasp but green shoot of recovery anywhere. Absolutely. And if you can't be positive on day one, then what's the point?
And there's a lot of Blues who couldn't be positive with Benitez.
Exactly. So there you go. There you go. Big thanks to Cam. Frank Lampard is Everton's manager. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and if you want more videos, including daily live videos, join us on Patreon. Lots of you have. Lots of you are loving it. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you later.